Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and in my search of finding yet another awesome New York guitar player, we have the one and only Tommy Byrnes with us today. Tommy's not only a cool dude, he's extremely successful. He's worked as Billy Joel's lead guitarist and musical director, dig this, since 1990. That's since my older son was alive, man. How cool is that? He was also the musical consultant for the Tony-nominated Broadway musical Movin Out. He's also the musical director for the touring companies of the show, and he was nominated for a Grammy for his production of the Movin Out cast album. Besides Billy Joel, he's toured as a guitarist and or musical director with several artists, including Enrique Iglesias, Brian Setzer, Joan Jett, and Taylor Dayne. He's also written and recorded with these artists. Tommy wrote and produced Mandy Moore's It's Gonna Be Love from the soundtrack of A Walk to Remember and the #1 European single, Daylight in Your Eyes by pop stars No Angels. His television experiences include like pretty much everything. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon and Jay Leno, Ellen DeGeneres, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Harry, Oprah Winfrey Show, The Late Show with David Letterman, SNL, Kevin Can Wait, Live with Regis and Kathy Lee, and Live with Regis and Kelly, Rosie O'Donnell, Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve, Arsenio Hall, Craig Kilborn, and anybody else that is out there. He's got done obviously several music videos, a bunch of PBS music specials, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Grammys, the Tonys, the American Music Awards, as well as several live broadcasts and VH1 specials. He's also done radio promo tours with Tina Arena, Sophie B. Hawkins, Amanda Marshall, and Crystal Bowersox. And he's also had the pleasure to perform with the following people. These are like legends: Tom Jones, Gladys Knight, Stevie Wonder, James Taylor, and a bunch of other people at Sting's Rainforest benefits at Carnegie Hall for several years. He also shared the stage with musical artists and legends such as Paul McCartney, Steven Tyler, John Mayer, Sting, Steve Miller, Tony Bennett, Pink, Adam Levine, Axl Rose, Brian Johnson, Miley Cyrus. Wow, Brian Johnson and Miley Cyrus. When's the last time someone said those two names back to back? Wow. Slash, John Mellencamp, Roger Daltrey, Itzhak Perlman, Chick Corea, Paul Simon, and others who were special guests at Billy Joel concerts. Tommy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Great to meet you, Greg.
Likewise, man. We've been planning.
I don't think we have to talk about anything else now, man. That sounds like,
we're done.
Sounds like a lot of stuff. I'm tired just listening about that.
We're done, man. Well, first of all, man, congratulations, because and I mean this sincerely, to be in one thing in anything nowadays for that length of time, just 28 years as we're sitting here, is like amazing. But to do it in the music industry, you know, if it's 1% in general, it's a hundredth of 1%, man. So that's really awesome.
It really is. I mean, I'm very lucky to have gotten a gig with Billy. He's very loyal. You know, it's just a great job, and and if you do it, you do your job, then there's no, you don't have to worry about too much. He's going to hold on to you as long as you're there for him.
That's very cool, man.
To work for, and then he, looks at me every once in a while. How long you been here? And I'm like, 28 years, boss. It's like, hey, you've been with me more than any of my wives.
And you probably cost them less than any of your wives.
Well, that probably goes without saying.
Oh man. Well, congratulations. Honestly, I think that's really cool. And it goes to you too, man. You don't, it's not loyalty that you're there for 28 years, but, I know what you're saying, but, it goes both ways. You got to be working your ass off for a guy like that.
Well, yeah, you got to be able to do the job.
Yeah. So Billy plays a monthly residency. For anybody who doesn't know, Billy Joel actually has a monthly residency at the Garden. He's the only one who does that, I think, right?
As far as I know, he's the only one who's ever done it anywhere. It's the only time it's ever happened at the Garden for a musician, for a songwriter, as far as I mean, I'm pretty positive of that. We're going on our 5th year. Now we're in the middle of our 5th year there. So it's pretty crazy.
So he does a monthly residency at the Garden. Last time you and I spoke, you told me you just played your 80th show there, your 80th show at the Garden. So I just had a few questions about playing with Billy and about playing at the Garden. The only other people that has a monthly residency at the Garden is the Knicks, and I think Billy Joel's in a much better standing with New Yorkers than the Knicks have been in a while.
Well, I mean,
unfortunately,
we kind of like to think of it like we win every night, so we don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Like to worry about losing. I guess sports can be a bit more brutal on that level.
Hell yeah, man. So how'd you first get hooked up with Billy? How'd you get the gig with him?
I was in between tours with Taylor Dayne. We had just finished her second record, Can't Fight Fate. And she was signed to Arista at the time. And Arista was always great with, top 10 hits. They seemed like anything they touched turned to top 10. So, again, Taylor had a bunch of top 10s off her first record. And then this one was doing well. Can't Fight Fate charted in the top 10. Sheltered charted in the top 10. So we were waiting for the next tour to start. And I always play with friends on Long Island constantly. I mean, I've never gotten a job through an audition. I've always been seen playing somewhere. So even if I'm not touring or not recording, I'm always out playing either with a 3-piece little blues band or something like that. And I was playing a boat show down in Freeport on Long Island, and I was playing with a drummer who had played with Debbie Gibson, and he noticed a guy in the crowd at the boat show who was Brian Ruggles, Billy's sound man for the past 45 years. And he recognized him. He said hello to him. He watched me play for a little while. We sat down. We had a couple of drinks. We chatted. He took my number and gave me a call. A couple of months later, out of the blue, I wasn't expecting that at all. And we were just about to do a tour, to do Taylor's next tour. And he said, "Can you come down to Miami? I'd like you to meet Billy." I went down and met Billy. Billy was like, "We're looking to get another guitar player. Brian seems to think you're the guy." And I just looked at him and said, "Well, I'd like to be the guy."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, if Brian says so, he's usually right. So, you're going to meet with this guy, Mark Rivera, go to his house. Just play for him. We, just want to make sure it's going to work out. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks in L.A." And that was my first gig with Billy 2 weeks later at the Sports Arena. And they're like, "Don't worry, you probably won't be in the mix for the first few shows because, there was no rehearsal with the band. There was a sound check. That was it." And he's like, "You know my stuff?" I'm like, "Well, I learned it in the past 2 weeks." I played for Mark at his house, and Mark was Billy's sax player forever. He's been in there about 36, 37 years. And I played a couple of Billy songs for Mark. And he's like, "You know most of the stuff that well?" I said, "Yeah, pretty much." He goes, "Good. I'm recording this record. You want to play on my..." So I ended up doing a session for him at his house when I was supposed to be doing basically my audition for Billy. And at that point, I knew everything was going to work out pretty well.
Wow. How cool. When you went in there, were you, this is not like, some, new kid on the block. When you first went, but you've been working with Taylor Dayne, who was a really big celebrity, but still not Billy Joel's.
Well, yeah, we had done, with Taylor, it was small. It was theaters and bigger clubs. It was all top 40 oriented pop stuff. We had done the Michael Jackson tour. We did probably 20 shows opening for Michael Jackson in Europe. And that was the biggest audience I've ever seen in my life. Those were soccer stadiums, sold out, 110,000 people. It was just insane. It was back in, I guess, 86, round about 87. And so Billy was different because, he's not an opening act.
Yeah.
He's the guy. My first gig at the Los Angeles Sports Arena back in 1990, I remember I was more nervous at the sound check than I was at the gig, because the place was empty and no one knew me. And you're standing there and you're going through the stuff and everybody's kind of helping you out and it's all good. And my knees were weak,
Sure.
For sure, and then before the first show that evening, though, Billy called me into his room. He's like, into his dressing room. He's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "I'm going to be okay." He goes, have some of this. And we shared a little bit of Doers on the Rocks together. I go, thanks. That's going to definitely help calm things down. He goes, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
That's really cool, man. That's really
so. It will work out good.
That's fantastic. When you were touring with opening up for Michael Jackson, was Jennifer Batten his guitarist then?
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
It was crazy. On that tour back in the days, you couldn't tell what was going on live or what was on playback or what was coming through some synclavia in a cool room underneath the stage that was guarded by I don't know, FBI agents or something. There was so much secrecy to that tour, but it was an amazing thing to watch. I actually, when I started working with Enrique, one of the shows we did was on Marbella in Spain. And when I started working with Enrique, he's like, you played with Taylor Dayne? And I was like, yeah. He goes, you opened up for Michael Jackson in Marbella? I said, yeah. He goes, I was at that show. I was 12.
That's wild, man.
Pretty cool. He goes, no, it's cool. Now you're playing with me. I'm like, yeah, good. Here we go.
Right. It's such a small, the music community is really a lot smaller than it would seem on the outside.
The older you get, I think the smaller it gets.
Yeah.
It's obviously bands come and go, but the ones that last this long, you eventually get to meet everybody that's in somebody's band. We all end up being the same age. If you're out here this long, I'm going to be 57 next month, and so you get to meet and hang out with the guys that have been around and lasted, even guys that I consider newer, like a John Mayer or somebody like that, and I'm lucky enough to have met with John and played with him. He's been a guest at several of our shows and be actually able to call somebody like Davy Johnstone a good friend, and things like that, where you go he's a bit older than me. And I knew exactly who he was in every lick he ever played on Goodbye Yellow Brick Road before
great
you ever
player.
got a chance to meet him. So when I meet somebody like that, I'm like, dude, you're a rock star.
Yeah.
We're having a beer together. That's cool.
That is cool. Dude, you look great for 57, man. I didn't think you were 57. What are you doing, man? What's the secret sauce in Billy Joel's camp there, man? What the hell?
I guess I'm lucky. I don't know. Someone accused me of being in my early 40s last week, and I was like, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's not like I take terribly good care of myself on any level. I like to spend as much time in the gym as I can muster up, but I have no idea.
Good for you, man.
It just keeps you young. I like to tell people, I've never really worked a day in my life. I've enjoyed everything I've done.
Fantastic, man. Over the last 28 years, what have been some changes, both in your role with Billy and in the playing with him, if you're playing with him, if there is any?
Yeah, I don't think much has changed. We haven't recorded a record since River of Dreams, which is the only record I've done with him, and that was 1993. So I joined the band in 1990 on the Stormfront tour, and I did that tour for 18 months with him. And then when that ended, I went out and I did a year on the road with Joan Jett, and then for a record called Notorious. It was myself and Tommy Price and Kenny Aronson. We were the Blackhearts at the time, and that was a great fun.
Wow, that's a great band, man.
Yeah. When we came off that tour, at that point, after that, I was like 165 pounds of whistling steel. Because, it's like we were playing 6 nights a week and
wow.
Living off the bus and everything else. And it was fun. I had a great time with those guys. But then when I came back, I got a call from Billy, and he's, I went to his house. He's like, okay, I got some new ideas. I want to play you. And so we had basically 4 or 5 ideas that ended up being songs on the River of Dreams album. And he had a guitar set up for me, and he sat at the piano, and I picked up a guitar. He was just, show me what you would play if I was playing something like this. And we went, through some stuff, and it was back to work at that point. So, and we recorded River of Dreams like 2.5 times. He had set up a place in Shelter Island that was a lobster holding tank, and he had it finished and turned it into a recording studio. And that didn't sound so good. I think lobsters sounded better than that particular version of the record did. So then we went into the Hit Factory in Manhattan and did it again for real.
Wow.
And Yeah, that record, it was the last record that he actually wrote, Now, you got a song called Famous Last Words, closing your record. It might be the last one you do,
Yeah. Wow. So it's pretty much been, and everybody goes there to see Billy Joel's hits, is, every show, I'm assuming. It's not.
There's a huge playlist of have to plays, So you got to do the number ones, basically. There's a lot of big radio hits that we don't do, that he just doesn't feel aged, I guess, as well as some of the others. I mean, and some of them that weren't hits have become these huge live moments that you have to do. There's, Italian Restaurant, which I don't think that was a hit.
I love that song. I remember that.
Too long, but it's become iconic, as opposed to Vienna, which wasn't a hit. And he gives them a choice every night, He'll say, we're going to give you a choice. You want to hear Just the Way You Are? You want to hear Vienna? So first of all, we get to play Vienna, which is cool. I love. And then we don't have to play Just the Way You Are, which is kind of like, okay, that song has been beaten to death.
Yeah.
Past 30 years, 35 years. And I think it's a memorable moment for everybody.
Yeah.
But when it comes right down to it, they vote for Vienna.
That's great. I love that. I love that song, Vienna. It's real pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Real pretty. It's good groove in that song, actually. It's good swing in there.
It's just got a very special thing. It's got an incredible melody. It's just really good Billy writing.
As you're from the city or near the city, I think, does playing all these shows at the Garden have an extra meaning for you because of that, or?
The Garden's just the most iconic room on the planet. Everybody's been there. The history is incredible. The Stanley Cup moments, the Muhammad Ali moments, whatever has happened there has made history. So then I think it's very special to Billy. I know for sure he said it a million times that he can't believe it's been going on for as long as it's been going on. But the history of the place, is just incredible. And every time you go there, to feel at home there is pretty special. I think most people, by the time they play there, by the time it's done, maybe it hasn't sunk in. It's one of those surreal places. So we actually get to go now. We've done it so many times. We get to really enjoy the moment. Yeah. I think more than most people that are like, that are that excited. It's like after doing Closing Shea Stadium, it was kind of like such an overwhelming moment that, a couple of days later, I remember talking to Billy and, well, what do we do now? I go, I can't remember what just happened. I had to watch it on video just to recall what was going on when we were doing it, because it was like, oh my God, this is all happening. And thank God for muscle memory for 90% of that show.
Because the energy was so cranked up. It was
you're just like, it was pretty amazing. And you wanted to get nervous, but there was so much to be nervous about. You just kind of said, oh, screw it. I'm not even going to try to think about what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to do it. So who's on tonight? So we got to play Walk This Way with Steven Tyler. We got to play My Generation with Roger Daltrey. We're going to do New York State of Mind with Tony Bennett. We're going to, and it was just one after the other. We're going to do Boys of Summer with Don Henley. So there was a ton of work that went in all day in 90-degree heat for 3.5, 4 hours on stage. And then you had a few hours, and then you went on and did the show. So, it all became kind of a blur after the fact. I remember just laying in bed 2 days later after I got, holy crap, what just happened? That was amazing. And the Garden, it's nice that we can enjoy it. It doesn't strike me like that now. It's kind of like home sweet home. We know there are people. I mean, the difference in the shows of the Garden from when we started, where it was 90% New Yorkers, New Jersey people, Connecticut people, local people. Now, I mean, people from all over the world, people from all over the country. They arrange their vacations around this. They'll come to New York City. We want to spend a week in New York. We want to stay at this hotel, and we want to go see Billy Joel. And there'll be people from London, people from Japan, people from Germany, people from everywhere. That, hey, we came all the way from Dusseldorf to see you. I'm like, that's a good idea, because we're probably not going to go back to Dusseldorf. This is the place to come. You know?
How cool! What a nice thing that you get to like bathe in this much energy, like on a regular basis. What a cool, really nice thing for you.
I'm incredibly fortunate. You know, I know that. I mean, you have to kind of forgive yourself for that.
Oh, it's
I've
great.
forgiven myself for having a great job. And I mean, my boss tells everybody every night that we do a gig, you know, if you can get this job, take it, because this is the best job I've ever had. You know, and obviously he's Billy Joel, so it's a pretty great job. But
yeah.
You know, I think that the filling out the resume for that job is
it's pretty freaking cool.
Goal.
Yeah. Hey, what would you say if you could even answer this? Like, what are the top 3 experiences you've had musically through your association with Billy? For any reason, just because of the work you did, maybe, or the experience, or the people involved. It's probably hard to pick 3.
You know, because I thought about that. You know, just to come up with things that stick out, and obviously, putting together Movin' Out was just one of the greatest things I was able to do. For me, there's nothing better than to be able to give another musician work. You know, so we put together a band that was going to be the band on Broadway. This was going to be a steady job for people. We didn't know how long it was going to last. I threw myself into the loop. I didn't make myself lead guitarist. I made myself the rhythm guitarist. Hired a 10-piece band, and just all great players that I knew that were familiar with the material that needed work. And everybody was like, oh, this is going to be great. Are you kidding me? Because, you know, we didn't want to have pit musicians for assorted reasons, because you know they do a lot of that work. I wanted like a rock and roll band that was familiar with Billy's stuff. Hopefully, I could get most of the guys from the area that we're all from on Long Island. So you know, you grew up with it, you understand it, you know what it's going to be like. You know, so I mean, for me, being able to give the greatest musicians, I mean, and I surround myself with great musicians, and the work that I've done and stuff that I've been in charge with. I mean, you hire the best and learn how to delegate, and you're going to get a great product, you know? So the band was fantastic. And that was really warmed my heart more than anything, was to be able to give somebody else a job that, you know, and we didn't know if it was going to last 3 weeks or 3.5 years as it did, which is pretty amazing for a musical with, you know, no narration, no libretto. No one's sure what the hell's
Yeah.
Her choreography is like, if you're not familiar with her, you got to kind of dig deep to figure out what the hell's going on. But people came, and I mean, it was the first time, in my recollection, that a band was actually on the stage with the dancers, and it was important to me, because I think Billy fans and people that aren't necessarily Broadway people are going to come to this show because it's Billy's music. You know, it's not a typical Broadway show. And so there's going to be a lot of girls dragging their boyfriends there that don't want to go to Broadway, and let them see the band. At least they can watch the band. You know, once the dancers come out, believe me, they're going to watch the dancers, you know. But, you know, if they can see the band, at least they can go, yeah, it's kind of like a very bizarre Billy Joel show. You know, so that was, you know, definitely one of my top moments as far as working with him, to have his trust to pull that off.
That's great. Awesome, man. What else?
I mean, the creative process behind that, being able to rearrange all the music, you know, I mean, that was a lot of fun. I was working with an incredible arranger who's the head of the orchestra in Pennsylvania, which Harrisburg. So he's the conductor for the Harrisburg Orchestra, and he was just, you know, a Curtis School of Music graduate, and way beyond me when it comes to schooling and writing and arranging, and one of the best piano players I ever worked with, and like an insane sight reader. So he was like, okay, this is how we're going to get this on paper, you know, because like you're going to have 10 guys up there that are going to know the show and know how to play. Yeah. But when somebody else has to come in and something has to be read, I'm like, all my guys have to train their subs. They have to be trained, because you can't come in and read something like when we're doing a Marilyn Manson take on "We Didn't Start the Fire." It's like it's not you can't write that down on a piece of paper and give anybody any kind of instructions right before the show starts and say, no, it goes like that.
Yeah. Who any other experiences that you had, like in working with guests from Billy that are just associated with Billy that appeared on the show that were like highlights for you?
Yeah, all of them are highlights in one way or the other. I mean, meeting Chick Corea, I was a big Return to Forever fan back in the day. I went through my Al Di Meola phase and loved Al's playing, and his just attention to detail and his precision is insane. And so I walk into whenever we have a guest, we put them in a room called the Brian Johnson room.
Why is it called?
Johnson, he was our first guest, so we made up. Sorry, it said the Brian Johnson room. So whenever like John Mayer shows up, or Chick Corea, or Steve Miller, whoever's there, it's like you're in the Brian Johnson room. And why aren't I in the John Mayer room? No, you're in the Brian Johnson room, because Brian Johnson's cooler than everybody.
That's great.
So very funny. But meeting Chick was amazing, and I told him stories about listening to Vulcan Worlds 8,000 times and listening to Stanley Clark's bass line, trying to figure it out when I was 7, or whatever, and things like that. But I mean, there's a million people that I've met that I've cherished the memory, and they all come with little anecdotes. I mean, back when I was working with the Stray Cats, I was flying out of LaGuardia to go to LA. I was staying with Brian at the time at his house in Hollywood Hills. And I was going back out there, and there's a guy in front of me. I got my guitar on my back. There's a guy in front of me. This is probably 1984. And there's a guy in front of me with a cymbal bag. And he turns around, he sees my guitar, and he goes, "Hey, man, you going to L.A.?" I said, yeah. He goes, who you play with? I said, I play with Brian Setzer from the Stray Cats. He goes, "Oh, yeah, cool. I know that guy. He's awesome." I go, "Yeah, he's great." And he's like, I go, who are you playing with? He goes, "I play with Chick Corea's Electric Band." And I go, Dave Weckl. And it was Dave, right? So
my God.
Shit, you're Dave Weckl. He goes, "Yeah, man, you heard of me?" I go, "Hell yeah, I'm a fan. What's it like to play with Chick Corea?" And he looks me right in the eye and he goes, "Fuck that. What's it like to play in front of chicks?" Like, okay, I get it.
That's great. That is so funny.
Point taken.
That is awesome. Really cool
story. All I could say was, it's pretty good to play in front of chicks. Like, I guess. He goes, "All I got is air drummers in front of me, air guitarists, and air keyboard players, and they're all guys."
That's so funny. Yeah, how true, man. Wow, difference in crowds. Very cool.
It was a funny moment.
How about like artists that you've worked with on your own, like this story? Do you have any like funny stories? Any other funny stories like that one?
Who else have I worked with? No, just being young and going little crazy once in a while stories. I mean, I kicked in a door in a hotel in Bonn, Cologne, Germany on my first tour with Billy, and I was so scared of losing my job. And I got called on it. I was like, oh shit. And Billy's like, "You're not going to lose your job. You kicked in a door. It's like, you might just have to buy a door." I was like, well, in that case, I kicked in the door. I didn't mean to. I just gave it a thing, and I was actually trying to get a hold of our bass player, Skylar, and I thought he was in his room, and I was like, screw it. And I kicked the door, and it fell in. Like, it wasn't a big, crazy, Guns N' Roses in the 80s moment.
Yeah,
but the door fell in, so I propped it back up. He wasn't in his room, and I waited around the corner because his basses were on his bed, and he came back with his key, put his key in the door, and the whole door fell over. So the next day, 2 days later, whenever it was, I'm checking out and I'm looking forward to this $400 or $500 bill being on my room to pay for the repair of a door, and there is the monetary value of one new door on there, and next to it is Billy's signature, and he wrote on the receipt, "First door's on me." And
wow, how cool is that, man?
Like, that was very cool.
First door is on me.
Let's not make it a habit.
That is so fucking cool, man. That is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, after that, I was like, okay, I know exactly who this guy is. I mean, I didn't have many of his records when I got the gig, and I was a fan of the music that I heard on the radio. I was like, this guy can write, he can play, he can sing. I'm a guitar player. It wasn't like I was going to go out and buy Billy Joel records when I was 16 or whatever, 15. But when I joined the band, I became a fan of the man. I became a fan of his personally. And then understood where he came from, what he went through, why he wrote what he was, how he learned to, is he, as a piano player, as an artist, I have to forgive myself for not being Jeff Beck as a guitar player. He had to forgive himself for not being Beethoven as a piano player. Yeah. We all have to know who we're not, as well as who we are, So once we got to be, buddies, and one of the first times I talked to him, I remember him saying, I haven't had this money a lot longer than I've had this money. So I'm not a crazy, eccentric rock star person, and now it's completely reversed because he's had this money way longer than he had. So he can be as eccentric as he wants, as far as I'm concerned, because,
Yeah, but that's a class thing, man, to do that. And I've interviewed a lot of players, and I hear once in a while a story like that, like First Doors on Me. That was a real class thing to do, man.
Yes.
And totally cool. I mean, how do you not be completely loyal to a guy that, that's really cool.
I've had conversations with him where it's like, I can do a lot of things and I can help in a lot of ways. If you lie to me, I can't protect you.
Yeah.
If we're always truthful with each other, whatever happens on the course of the lifetime that we're going to live on the road together, just tell me the truth.
Yeah. Well, it's like that with anybody, though, right? I mean, you can't. It's hard to have any.
That's a hard thing to learn. Yeah, it is like that.
Quality
relationship.
Yeah.
Sure.
You can't be. You can't come at people with half a deck and then expect a full deck's worth of rewards out of it.
Right.
What you just talked about before we started the call? You got something you just worked on that you're pretty excited about. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm working with this guy J.D. Leonard, singer-songwriter from, I think, originally Tennessee and then North Carolina, Winston-Salem area, but that area where they have a natural twang.
Yeah.
And he's a great singer, a great songwriter. We just finished up his album in Nashville with David Huff produced it. Just did a mini documentary, recorded a live concert, filmed it, and basically setting up his website right now. I'm going to be looking for management and an agent, not necessarily in that order, to get his butt on the road and have some people see him. He's got some good people behind him, and they're working the documentary pretty well. I mean, I think in the first week and a half, he had gotten over 120,000 hits on it, and it's getting shared pretty regularly. So, I mean, the people that are in the know about that stuff, definitely not being one of them. I'm a complete Luddite when it comes to that stuff. We're saying that it's going good, but it's a plateau any minute and blah, blah, blah. So we need to figure out what to do next. So, I mean, we're just going to have all guns blazing and be ready for anything. So the record will be done. The first video is done. There's a mini documentary. There's a live concert. There's anything else we can put together to get the ball rolling. We'll do. We just couldn't think of anything else.
And it's J.D. Leonard. What kind of music was it? Was it is that Americana?
Yeah, we'll call it Americana. Not a great word.
I know. I don't like that word at all. It's just it's nutty.
You label anything.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that it's country music, and I mean we do stuff that sounds like a cross between AC/DC and Merle Haggard. It's got a lot of different layers to it and textures to it. But it's getting great responses. People love to listen to it live. Some of the country radio stations is one on Sirius that I don't know anything about any of that. But I mean, they're they want to play it, and then we're like, okay, what label are you on? And it's like, well, we're not on a label, and it's like, well, we can't touch you.
Really?
Everything needs to go through somewhere. If they're going to play something, they need to pay wherever it's got to go. So unless everything's kind of signed, sealed, and delivered, the days of Don K. Reed playing something because he likes it, and you want to get it played. So yeah, please play it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to pay us anything. Just play the damn thing. We'll figure out how to make money off it later.
Yeah.
I guess those days are pretty much gone. There's too many lawyers in the soup these days.
Wow, that's too bad. Well, it's J.D. Leonard. Everybody check him out online on Facebook, and I think he's on Twitter. And Tommy Byrnes is playing guitar on that. Where are you actually from? Like, where'd you grow up?
South Shore, Long Island, a town called Limbrook.
Okay.
Started playing in those bars down there, Half Crown Pub, Uncle Al's, Right Track Inn, when I was like 15 years old.
Uncle Al's, I remember.
You remember?
Yeah, because
are you from?
I'm from the Bronx, but they used to play. I used to listen to NEW, and you know what? I used to listen to WBAB.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd hear all the commercials
for all the bands that were playing at those dives.
At those kind of bars, right? So I was like, when you're being from the Bronx, Long Island was like almost another planet. Like I knew about it, but it was just like. It was just,
Long Island was so great back then.
Yeah, a lot of good bands there.
There were so many different stages you could be at in your band's life that if you could get 100, 150 people, 200 people into a room and you were playing stuff that wasn't exactly the most popular stuff at the time, you weren't playing the big heavy metal stuff, you weren't playing the pop stuff. We would do an old school rock and roll and rockabilly and stuff like that, and you could play at places like the Half Crown in front of 200 people and have a full house, or the Right Track, or Uncle Al's and that. And if you were a bigger band, then there were the Hammerheads, and,
right,
and OBIs or whatever.
OBI, right? I remember going there.
40 bands that did ZZ Top as good as ZZ Top and that stuff, and then on top of that were the Speaks, where Twisted Sister would go and play in front of 1,800 people or whatever, and well, we never quite made it there on that level of what we were doing, because we had integrity, and we were well, I was friends with the Stray Cats. I saw Brian on the cover of NME when I was like 19 years old, and I was like, I want to be that dude. I want to play that kind of music. And I ended up being in doing the last Stray Cats tour with him. And then, working with him and doing a couple of records with him.
That's really cool. Do you remember Zebra? They used to play out there all the time.
I do. Actually, my wife just walked in and was possibly the biggest Zebra fan on Long Island.
But dude, I got Randy Jackson coming on the show this Friday. How funny is that?
Hi.
I will.
Randy's a great guy, man. He's a really great guy and a really talented guy. Yeah, they were one of those bands that used to play those places that wouldn't even let us in.
Yeah, man, they were like the biggest thing in the tri-state area when that album hit. It was really funny.
Oh, yeah, and he's from like New Orleans or something.
Yeah,
right?
He's from New Orleans, exactly.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that until I researched him for this show. I thought they were all Long Island guys.
It's funny. I just found out that in November I'm getting inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, which is really
congratulations, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome.
So the first thing I did, I was like, okay, I can name probably 10 people off the top of my head that I know are in there, and then I pop in, all right, who else is in there? Just so I know who's from Long Island, And I mean, you're gonna have the Rascals, you're gonna have Billy, you're gonna have Billy's band that played on the records, you're gonna have Debbie Gibson and Taylor Dayne and Joan Jett, and there's Zebra right there, and it's like, and they're the only ones I think that are on the site. You can watch their live performance.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah. And it was funny, but there's Clive Davis and there's all these, Steve Vai and a lot of writers and a lot of promoters, Ron Delsner. And I was like, okay, this is really like
cool, man.
Huge thing. It's absolutely awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
What was your childhood like growing up?
It was, it really was all music. It was, my father played the mandolin. My mother used to walk around the house singing all the time. So it was like he'd play 5'2" or Darktown Strutter's Ball and Lady of Spain, and she'd walk around singing the stuff. And I got my first guitar when I was probably 5.
Oh wow!
The nylon string thing, and my older brother Eddie had a band when I was like 8 that I always wanted to be in. So I would, sneak into their rehearsals and stuff. But, his guitar player was a really nice cat. He would always, show me chords, teach me stuff. Me and my father were my first band. He played the mandolin, I played guitar, and we played songs that were written about 50 years before I was born.
How cool is that though? To have you must have great memories playing with your dad. That's a very connecting, warm thing to do.
It is. It definitely is. It's funny. Yeah.
What was that what your dad did for a living? Was he?
No. He was a surveyor.
Yeah, gotcha.
He worked for the county and surveyed all the overpasses on the Southern State Parkway. I think that probably took almost like half his career.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Built.
I haven't heard that the Southern State. I've been out of the city for years, but I haven't heard. That's funny, man. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Oh, yeah, it's still there. There's almost as much traffic there as there is on the LIE now. Oh my God!
Once you started playing, did you ever have like a holy shit moment where like, oh my God, this is actually working? Like I'm playing, I'm getting paid, I'm moving up, sort of.
I had them on a regular basis, I had a band on Long Island, and but after the Stray Cats' initial success in the UK and in London, we were like, well, why don't we try that? And then this is before even Twisted had gone over there. So then, the Long Island bands at that point, they were going over there. There was a scene there. And I guess it was romanticized a certain amount. So the Stray Cats went over, and they just became the big, and Rockabilly and Teddy Boys. It was a big scene over there, and they became the biggest thing ever. I like to say, there's only a few people that ever made money playing rockabilly music, like Elvis Presley, Gene Vincent, Brian Setzer.
Yeah, not too many.
That's kind of like, so they reinvented the whole thing. We went over, tried to do that. I lived over there for the better part of 2 years. I was probably 18 to 20 near there, and then came back to New York. Kept playing on Long Island. Brian came down to see me playing at a place called Heckle and Jekyll's, and he brought a guy named Dave Edmonds with him.
Holy shit.
Dave had produced the first Stray Cat album in Europe, so the two of them got up and played at this little bar. Brian always came down with a vintage Fender amp and a Gretsch guitar and stuff, and his Brody put it up on stage next to my stuff, and so they all got up. And I guess it was right around that time Brian called me up and he said, hey, you want to come to my house and hang out for a little while? Bring your girlfriend, who's my wife now. Yeah. And so I went up there, 84, 85. And he's like, so we went up to his music room with a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he started playing some Stray Cat stuff. He goes, what would you play if I played this? And it was very reminiscent of what happened, years later with Billy. So I'm doing stuff that I would do with him. He goes, okay, here's the deal. I'm kind of exhausted being the only guitar player in a 3-piece band, and I'd like a little more help for this next tour. You want to join the band? And I was like, absolutely. That was a holy shit moment.
Yeah.
What just happened? I walk in as a local guy, and I come down the stairs an hour later as the 4th Stray Cat, which to me was like being the 5th Beatle at that time.
Sure. And you're a kid at the time.
I had done some stuff before that. My first tour when we first went to the UK was with Bo Diddley. We were doing we did a weekly thing at this place called Dingwalls in not West Hampstead and I forget the name of the town in London. But Bo came into town. We were already there for a while, and he was looking for a pickup band to do his UK tour. We were Americans. He was like, okay, I'll try them. We went into a rehearsal studio, and he's like, you boys know my beat? And I was like, junk, junk, junk. Yeah, we can. Yeah. He goes, good, because most of my songs only have one chord, so it's going to be fine. And it was hysterical. So we played, I called it the M1 tour. We started like somewhere in Cardiff in Wales and ended up in Aberdeen in Scotland and played every university along the M1.
That's great.
At one end of the UK to the other. And that was absolutely amazing. And then I came back, and went out with opening with another rockabilly band from upstate New York, and we opened for Van Halen on the 1984 tour from Edmonton to Phoenix. And we got the crap kicked out of us every night by the audience. I mean, like, we had so much crap thrown at us. I had everything from a dirty tampon to a bottle of vodka thrown at me. Fireworks on the stage. They used to sweep the stage of coins after every show, put it in the bag, and give it to us as a bonus.
Just because they wanted Van Halen. They weren't interested in anything.
Exactly. It was the 1984 tour, so it was the last tour with David Lee Roth. So, I mean, it was all festival seating, right? So there's no sitting down. Yeah. Everybody's between, 15 and 20 and just wants to kill whoever's going to get between them and Van Halen at that point, So we'd go out there and just, we play for 25 minutes and we would run back and forth across the stage the whole time. So I was trying not to get hit with anything.
Yeah.
And, but, I got to see Eddie several times. I got to speak with him a lot while we were doing that. When I started working with Brian on, we did a record called The Night Feels Like Justice after he disbanded the Stray Cats. And I was doing the first Farm Aid with Brian. And so we were walking around. We got to meet Johnny Cash. We were, talking with Kenny Rogers and all these people that had just watched us perform. And Brian's like, oh, yeah, come on, Eddie Van Halen's over here. Let's go say hello. So Brian walked over. He's like, hey, Eddie, how you doing? And he's like, hey, Brian, what's going on? And he looks over and he goes, you look familiar. And I go, yeah, I was the guitar player in that band that got crap thrown at him on your last tour. That was their first gig with Sammy. And he looks at me and he looks at Brian. He goes, hey, you're doing a lot better now, aren't you?
That's funny, man.
I said, yeah, hopefully nobody's going to throw anything at us tonight, except Mother Nature. We got rained on.
Man, I give you a lot of credit, though, for just picking up and moving over to England. And it's like, what can we do there?
Well, because of Brian, we were acquaintances at that time, so we did a lot of digging, and he helped us out a lot. He gave us some numbers, how to get gigs, hooked us up with a place to stay. So he's like, "Oh, give it a shot. You can stay with these people. They're good friends of mine. They're always looking for something new. I told them about you guys. Go over and give it a shot. See what happens." So, I mean, it certainly didn't happen for us like it happened for them, but we had a lot of good times and a lot of vague memories.
Yeah, but it's tuition, man. You know what I mean? It's like tuition to the next thing that you do.
Well, yeah, like with the, on the Van Halen tour, I think I paid about 7 years worth of dues in about 6 months.
No, but I mean, honestly, that's because a lot of people want to do stuff like that. And even though, Brian, kind of helped you and opened some doors, as well as I do, people talk a lot of shit, and the difference between thinking about doing something and actually doing it, it takes a little bit of balls, so I think that's really cool.
For sure. I mean, now it's like, more balls and brains. When I just remember this, when I got the call to go out and join this band, they had already done like 3 shows with Van Halen, and the guitar players couldn't do the rest of the tour. And I'm on the phone with the guy thinking to myself, why the hell would anybody not want to do the rest of this tour? They're like, I'll tell you when you get here. So into the airport, they're dropping this guy off, and it's like, well, he kind of had a nervous breakdown. And I'm like, yeah, what? Well, we'll tell you about that when we get in the Winnebago. I'm like, oh, Winnebago. That's cool. I was my God. Fan.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so yeah, there was that. I mean, I always told myself, if anybody calls me and offers me a job at that point in my life, I leave nothing on the table. If you go there and there's a plane ticket, I'm getting on the plane. And if no return when I get there and it's all falling apart or some whatever, if some goof up or whatever, I'll have enough money to get myself home.
Sure.
And get back. But I was willing to go anywhere to follow it, to see what was going to be waiting on the other side.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, though. I mean, like I said, a lot of people bitch that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there. You just got to make the leap, and especially in this, coming from this country for all the warts it has, man, there's opportunities, no shortage, and you just got to have like you said, balls better than brains sometimes, but so be it,
Yeah, exactly.
What are some obstacles, Tommy, that you maybe had to overcome throughout this journey along the way besides getting used tampons thrown at you? That is a fucking that's an obstacle, man. That's a problem.
Yeah, I think one of the main obstacles is being away from home all the time. when we don't tour the way we used to, certainly I don't take on that kind of work. It's something that's not offered my way anyway. Everybody knows I've been with Billy forever. I'm not going to get a tour thrown at me from a young band anymore. Right. We're going to be going out and not going to be home. When I first started with Billy, we were gone for 6 weeks and we'd be home for 2 weeks, gone for 6 weeks, home for 2 weeks. And that was a tour. And we'd do the world, and it would take almost 2 years. Those are the obstacles back in the day, for sure. Because, you have, my son was born. I'm in San Francisco. I get the call. They fly me. We had 3 days off, luckily. So, Billy's guys flew me home the next day. I got to see my wife, see my son, hang out for the day, get back on a plane and go back to San Francisco. Would have been easier if we were in New Jersey or something.
Yeah, sure.
But, fly back across the country. And I remember when I was working with Joan, my wife was pregnant with my daughter. And that was 93. And we were supposed to go to Japan. And another heavy thing for me to have to do is to have to remove myself from a situation, So I couldn't do the Japanese tour. So I gave the gig to a buddy of mine, Tony Bruno, and nobody liked that idea because it was kind of like it's not yours to give away, whatever. So, it's just my idea. You can audition everybody in New York. And they did. Took Tony Bruno, and he took my place. And I love Joan. We just did a gig together at Nassau Coliseum.
Awesome.
Nassau, there's another word you probably haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah. I actually saw a hockey game
was great
there.
Too.
Like
it was great to see her.
To see Joan, yeah. She's another one, man. She's taken whatever you're on to look young. I don't know what the hell that is.
You know what, man? She looked great. I don't know how she does it. She's the most beautifully photogenic woman I think I've ever met. Because, I see photos of her and I go, how does she look that good? And she does. She looks fantastic. Yeah. I don't see her in person that much anymore. Like I said, just a few months ago, I guess we opened the Coliseum. I don't know. I remember we closed it. I'm not sure who the hell was there for that or how long that was. Or we were opening it again. I don't know. But she was there at the last Coliseum gig we did, and we did "I Love Rock and Roll" and "I Hate Myself for Loving You," and it was awesome.
That's all right, man.
She's a great rocker. And
dude, congratulations! You've been with your wife like 36, 37 years or something.
31 years this year, 1987.
Dude, congratulations. That's awesome. That's not easy either.
No, well, she was the reason why I was able to stay alive long enough to get the jobs that I've gotten and understanding enough and takes care of everything here. Took care of the kids, basically had to raise them on her own for the first 10 years of their lives. As you're traveling and trying to get this happen, but tons of support. That's what it takes. It's not a lot of moment for both people to be as selfish as I was.
Yeah, no, but
it's a lot of dishes and laundry.
But it's work, man. And I don't mean in a negative way. I mean, it's to keep something like that together. It's not easy. You got to both work hard at it. It doesn't randomly happen. And I know you're happily married because you've mentioned your wife to me several times, and every time you do, it's in a, you have a good spirit about it. It's not like, oh, my wife, Well, you could talk to certain guys and, you hear it and it's like, oh.
Right. No, I get that. No,
yeah.
If what you're getting into this, what you're going to put each other through.
Yeah.
I know what she's going to go through over the course of a career living with a musician, so it's not easy. So there's a lot to say thank you for all the time.
Yeah, man. Well, congratulations to you both. That's a huge accomplishment. If you had to go back, if you had to give yourself advice, the young Tommy advice, what advice would you have liked to hear that you think would have helped you and made your life a little easier?
I've gotten a lot of advice over the years from people that I respect, and a lot has to do with taking care of yourself so that you feel good every day. A lot has to do with not living beyond your means because you think you're that guy when that guy's only 10 feet away, but he's that guy, Yeah. I remember sitting down with I was working with some guys from Valley Stream, and Gene Cornish was there, and we were at a friend of mine, Freddie's house, and Gene was the guitar player in Young Rascals.
Okay, I knew that name. Right, yeah.
Right. So, like, we had done a gig together, and I was really young, and he wasn't, like, probably 13 years older than me or 14 years older than me. And the Rascals had already come and gone way before that.
Sure.
And he's like, I guess we hanging out at Freddie's house, and he's like just saying, okay, all I got to say is, if you end up having a career in this business, don't buy the horses. Don't buy the big house. And definitely don't buy the Rolls Royce, because it's going to break your heart when you have to sell them. I was like, okay, I get it.
So you paid it.
I can't even afford a bicycle right now, but I get it. And I remember certain things. You know what? We never knew what was coming the next day or the next year or the next record, the next tour, or when work is going to come in. You never really get that kind of a contract. Maybe if you get a gig with somebody, it's going to last one tour. Great. Then you're working. I mean, nothing's ever carved in stone. Everything revolves around usually one guy, so if that guy doesn't want to do it, or for, for some reason, there's health reasons or whatever, can't do it. It's like, okay, now what's going on? You have to make a living. There's a drastic change in your lifestyle at that point, because the gravy train can come to a screeching halt at any time in your life. Yeah. So, I mean, to never live beyond your means is a really good idea, For sure. And get along. I mean, my advice to everybody is if you're in a band, when you're young, it's like 80% of what you want to do is be a great player, so you get noticed. Then it's 10% you're going to look good because you want to get chicks. Right. The 10% is you got to get along with everybody so nobody kills each other on stage. And after 40 years, it's like, okay, you want to be a great player? Yeah, but not 80%. I mean, if you're still around in 40 years, chances are you're a pretty good player. Yeah. So you can only, and you can only look so good. So for so long, yeah. Yeah. The 80% changes on to, okay, 80% now of what you're going to do is get along because you don't want this to stop. 10% look as good as you can. Yeah. The other 10%. Get up and play. Chances are everybody knows the songs already anyway. You're not breaking any ground tonight. Yeah. Good advice, man. Thank you. One thing I wanted to ask you, I was thinking about as you were talking is, I don't know you well at all, but every time I've talked to you or emailed exchange, you're always doing stuff that like makes you happy. Like you're being happy is an important part of your life. Like you mentioned, I'm going away. I went to Italy. I have some friends over, and I noticed those things because those are things that people who are happy people and who are, committed to living a happy life do. Yet at the same time, you're super driven because you're still hustling now. You're still doing things. You're not sitting back there. So my question is, how usually people who are super driven struggle with the happiness part. It's like, and I'm one of them, like it's all work and it's really tough to stop and put the plugs on and remember, hey man, you're only here one trip, relax. But you seem to do that pretty naturally. I was curious like where that came from, or is that intentional or? I think everybody's got to figure out how to make themselves happy. I mean, I like sharing my life with my friends. Love having them over, love sharing, my stuff with them. Come over, we'll throw some meat on the grill, throw your kids in my pool. And I have, a good life. I've been incredibly blessed, to have the career that I've had. And so, I mean, I share it with my friends. I share it with my family. That's one way. Also with my work, I share that with them as well. So, I play a lot. I play out with friends all the time. If I can help them in any way, I do. That, there's always something you can do positively for someone every day. It's never not appreciated. Yeah. unless you do something for a 17-year-old and they're like, oh, they think they deserve it. Then
No,
like,
that's
okay, you know what? In 20 years, you'll thank me.
Yeah, like maybe 10 or 11 if you're lucky. That's
right.
That's like what it seems. But yeah, man, you do a really good job of that. I respect you about that because it's hard to be such a hustler. And I
was thinking about what we were going to talk about today. So, like, I spent 2 hours out in my garden today, and I'm like, when I'm weed whacking and I'm, snipping twigs and cleaning stuff up, and I get my leaf blower out and I play with all my manly man kind of toys, which to me is a leaf blower and a weed whacker. There's no chainsaws in my life except for the one that takes care of my guitars. It makes me happy, and I kept running in like every 10 seconds, or every 10 minutes I'm running in, I'm writing something down. So, I want to tell Craig about that, and I want to do that, and I like talking to you. There's tons of stuff we can talk about if we get together and do this again. Just anything that happens that pops up. I'll send you an email or whatever, and if I think it's going to help somebody who's just coming up, like I said, to realize how they can have a career in this business without torturing themselves to death on the way.
Yeah, man.
The guy, everybody I know has gone through one phase or another, whether it's, the stories of Billy drinking cleanser or whatever, shoe polish or whatever. I don't know. Like, everyone goes through these moments of serious depression when you don't see that there's any way out, and then
Sure.
That's the time for the deep breath and remember who you are and how, lucky you are to have the talent and the friends that you have. And then, maybe you need to call some of them and let them tell you that it's not as bad as you think it is.
No, I hear you.
You asked me about some, who I'd like to jam with, or my desert island records and stuff, and they actually made me think. Because I'm like, okay, like my older brothers brought so much music into the house. My brother Eddie, closest in age to me, he's 8 years older than me, brought in Hendrix and Johnny Winter and 10 Years After and stuff, and that's what I was growing up wanting to play, and those are my first guitar heroes and teachers and stuff. And it was my older brother John who brought in Creedence and Mamas and the Papas and stuff like that. So there was all sorts of that, that kind of music in the house. And so, for me, it was always about guitar players. So if I have to pick people that are alive that I would love to jam with, actually, one of them guy that I love, and I love him because of the way he plays, the way he sings, and the fact that he plays a Les Paul is Joe Bonamassa.
Oh, yeah.
Who, if you haven't spoken to him, you probably should, because I go on every once in a while and just look at his guitar collection and go,
oh my God,
yeah, PBS has been so good to that dude.
Yeah,
he's amazing. He's amazing.
You know who else has a massive guitar collection? I'm sure you know him, John Shanks.
No, who's?
He's like he's out with Bon Jovi now, but he's a producer out in LA. Okay. He produces he's produced like 90 number one records, and he's Bon Jovi's really? Producer. Yeah, but he's got it's all vintage, and he's got 2 West Coast storage, East Coast storage of everything.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
wow.
It's that's nuts how big his collection is.
That's another problem that I have. Like, if I could change things, I would have read more liner notes and tried to memorize them. My son can tell you who produced every single record I think that's ever been recorded and who played on them. And I'm like, I don't know anybody. I've always been working. So it's like, do you know this guy from this band? No, because he's been in that band and I've been in that band.
Right.
And if we've both been working all the time, we've never met. I don't really know who he is. And that's my John Shanks story.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
If he had produced a Billy record, maybe I would know who he is.
Totally get it, man. Let me ask you one more question. Let's go through the Desert Island Disc question, then, since you had something for that.
I did, and I was like, I think Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East.
Great record.
We could go in alphabetical order. As far as guitar players, anyway, Still Alive and Well, Johnny Winter. It's just insane, the playing on it.
That's the 3-sided one.
This is old stuff,
That's great.
10 years after Undead, I mean, I would have to have a copy of Sgt. Pepper's hidden under a coconut tree, just because every song on that record is a friggin' masterpiece. I don't know. I had trouble getting down to it, but I mean, I remember wearing out at least 2 copies of Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore.
Great record. And so is that 10 years after. I love that, man. That Undead record is phenomenal.
Undead is hysterical. I mean, you're an 11-year-old kid and you're listening to Alvin Lee play Going Home live. And it's just like this acrobatic, fast, like incredibly loud, and you just want to be at that show and hear how loud it actually was. And just fantastic. Well, yeah, I mean, I just went through so many guitar players in my head, and I'm writing down, okay, Steve Howe, and all these other guitar players from bands that were brought into my house, and there wasn't never enough time to, okay, I got these 2 Hendrix albums down. Okay, I can play Purple Haze, and I can play Manic Depression, and I can play Wind Cries Mary. Okay, I got to get on to Jeff Beck has a record out now called Blow. I got to move over to that one because I got to learn some of that stuff. When we were kids, man, there was a record coming out like once a month that you had to learn everything on it, just because you had to get to the next one, There was never enough time. So Billy's like, you don't know anything from Axis Bold's Love. I go, never got there. I had to leave Hendrix at that point to go over to Jeff Beck.
Yeah, after Electric Ladyland. I hear you.
Or somebody, yeah.
Well, man, listen, I can't thank you enough for your time, man. I really appreciate it. And you're more than welcome to come on the show any other time. I could speak to you for hours. And I want to tell everybody again I don't need to promote Billy's tour, that's for sure. Billy will have no problem selling out without Craig Garber. But check out J.D. Leonard, because Tommy's worked on that album as guitar player, and he's really psyched on it. And you can find him on Facebook. It's J.D. Leonard, or on Twitter at J.D. Leonard. And thanks.
Give me a call anytime. If you hear we're doing something interesting, give me a buzz.
I will, man. Hang on, we'll wrap up. Everybody, thank you so much.
Come down and see a show, man. Give me a call.
I'm coming in November. Maybe I will. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, share it with a friend on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks so much to Tommy Byrnes for spending time with us. Check him out on tour with Billy Joel. And make sure you go to the homepage of everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.